Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, here for your end of the year address of 2021 coming into 2022. This is my astrological report that I do every year. I cover what just happened in 2021 and what we're going to see here in 2022. Every year that I've done this, it's been almost a decade for this show. And of course, I'm a little bit more excited. I don't want to scare people. I'm just saying that a lot of people nowadays, especially in this spiritual community, if we're going to call it that, use 2022 predictions as a really nice banner and a way to get views. I'm putting this one out on Monday, January 3rd, because the new moon was January 2nd in Capricorn, and we have Venus retrograde in Capricorn. And I'm one to go through the astrology, feel what's going on within myself about the message that I have to give people as I sit here in my research office. I think the big thing of 2022 is realizing that 2020 and the energies that happened with Saturn and Pluto. Remember, Saturn and Pluto hadn't met in Capricorn since 1517 and 1518, okay? Jupiter Pluto, which met multiple times, that had been a couple hundred years. And then Jupiter Saturn, which is a 20-year cycle, but for us to see in Aquarius, gosh, we're going back a long time on that one. Close to around the same time that Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto were all in Capricorn, which was 1284. So I just am wanting people to realize that the vibration of 2020 is not something that is just going to go away right away. But the good news about 2022 is the separation of all these energies are finally at a place to where people can start to feel like we're going to start to see another world than the 2020, 2021 world. But it doesn't mean that it's fully going away, right? It's just like there's a little bit more air in the room to breathe. And Jupiter and Neptune meeting up in Pisces is the big one for 2022, especially because the last time that those two had met up was in 1856 in Pisces, and they're both the rulers of Pisces, one being the ancient ruler, one being the modern ruler. And 1856 was just a very intense year, especially for what caused the Civil War in America. It was those events that transpired, not only in how the country built up its division, but there's also a lot of smoke and mirror events that went on that year that a lot of people, whenever I tell them or when I've talked about them in lectures, they really never knew or they never did the history on. But if we're just going to take a second here and just look at 2022, let's take it from this place. Because Jupiter and Neptune are meeting up, and to me, that's the biggest transit of the year. I mean, there's some really radical transits of 2022 that are all over the place. But let's focus on that one for a second. Because what is Pisces? Well, Pisces deals with our soul. It deals with our compassion. It deals with our subconscious. It deals where, we are wanting to surrender to things in order to have our true spiritual, understanding and revelations based upon that. At the end of the day, we do have to come to places of surrender. And so I think the good news about it is a lot of people are going to realize, what have I not surrendered to maybe try and find the answers to these complex things in my life and the world? Maybe I just need to let go, right? That's the whole point of Jupiter and Neptune and Pisces, is to let go. But there's some things that we can't let go of. I mean, Saturn has been in square to Uranus, as Saturn is in its ancient home sign that it rules, Aquarius, and Uranus is in Taurus, which brings so many values that are different between people. And when you try and force a whole collective to embody a same value, it just doesn't work, right? It's a failed experiment every time, especially when Uranus is in Taurus. And to see Uranus in Taurus that's been in square to Saturn through 2021 3 times, and in 2022, they're not going to make exact squares like they did, but they're definitely not moving out of those signs in 2022, and they'll be squaring. And with the nodes now, the North and the South node, moving into Taurus and Scorpio, they are going to add to this fixed energy with Saturn that'll be squaring the nodes, and with Uranus conjunct the North node. And with this Jupiter Neptune going on in Pisces, it's really radical still. And Jupiter and Neptune is also that energy of Pisces where, yes, there's the surrender, but also there's the, I don't want to look at it. I'm just going to not be aware of it, even though I'm aware of it. I want to push it away, right? I want to throw it under the rug. And because Neptune rules the media, and we're going to see some really weird aspects, especially the weirdest ones to me have been a lot of the semi-squares to Neptune, like 2018, especially 2019 into 2020 with Uranus that was semi-square over to Neptune. You know, that's this whole media thing and the people that's been so weird. There's a lot of weird aspects that are going to continue. And especially, what are you going to have to face this year in 2022? And what are we going to have to face as a collective as Saturn is still in Aquarius? Yes, there's complex problems, solutions. Everybody wants things to come back to normal. But like I just was saying at the very beginning of this, 2020's energy is a long-lasting energy. And this is the first year where, okay, we could take it down a notch. But this is also where that Neptunian fog is going to be amplified with Jupiter. And the energy of division is not going to be easily found, for a solution at least. If anything, it's going to be exacerbated more. And one of my big predictions I'm predicting is, especially with Jupiter and Neptune and Pisces, the deception energy of kind of everything's fine. Look at how glorious things are. And then there's a different reality that you can see, but it's all flipped. So there's been saying everything's fine if you do this. And then we've been seeing this other world out there that doesn't get talked about, or gets shoved under the rug, or gets X'd out. What if it would be the opposite here now in 2022? No, everything's fine. Everything's great. Go out there, enjoy your life. And you're looking around and it's like, are you sure it's okay? Because everything's not looking like it on the ground. Everything's been media-based and visualized. Now you have to be the one this year to know how to know when you're being suckered and when you're not. We got Jupiter that's coming into Aries this year, but we've never seen Jupiter with Chiron in Aries. Remember, Chiron was found in 1977, and it was in Taurus. So, number one, we've never actually been aware of Chiron as it's traveled through Aries, and we've never seen Jupiter in Chiron and Aries since we found Chiron. So this brings us to some really weird energy of, are we really going to, in our own selves, I think this is what we need to pay attention to in the world, and we need to pay attention to in our own selves. Are we really going to overblow some sort of strength or some sort of, some end-all be-all that we have found the new road, and doing whatever it can to believe that we can fix things, especially with Saturn at the end of Aquarius still, with Pluto at the end of Capricorn, which I haven't even gotten into that yet, and with Chiron here, and then Jupiter retrograding at the end of this year, and retrograding back into Pisces at that 29th degree, which is the hardest degree, and almost having it feel suckered or pulled away from us. And with Pluto, that is in Capricorn, has been since 2008, and 2022 is the last official year of it being in Capricorn fully. Meaning next year in 2023, we're going to see Pluto enter into Aquarius and then retrograde back into Capricorn and actually be in Aquarius full-time in 2024. But this is also where America's Pluto return is. The Declaration of Independence was signed July 4th of 1776 with Pluto retrograde at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto this year will hit 27 degrees of Capricorn. It'll actually hit 28 and retrograde in the same exact position that it was when the Declaration of Independence was signed. So there is the energies of that revolution. We've got Uranus and Taurus that will reach halfway through Taurus, which brought up weird Olympics energy, like the Berlin Olympics in the 30s. It's interesting to see that the Olympics in China is definitely not looking like it's going to be an Olympics that will be remembered in a normal fashion. It's going to be the year where you're going to realize, don't get suckered into what looks too good to be true. And that's what's so funny is you're going to be seeing it played, if we were to use the analogy of politics and the left and the right, you're going to be seeing the left playing the right politics and the right playing the left politics. Like, what? We already have kind of seen that, but the story that we've been seeing, it's almost going to seem like it flipped. Like, what do you mean? There's no more problem anymore. And then, what do you mean there's a problem? It's like, what is being shoved under the rug, especially in yourself? The stuff that you have been just like, oh, no, I'll be okay. I'm just going to keep putting that, or I'm going to just avoid this. We have a Venus retrograde that's came into this 2022, and it's in Capricorn. It retrograded over Pluto. Now, that's rare. Pluto retrograding over, Venus retrograding over Pluto? And it's happening in Capricorn? Remember that the last time that Venus had retrograded over Pluto was actually in 86 in November. I think it was on the 15th in Scorpio. So that was already a long time ago. These are not normal things, and coming into this new year, that's happened. So we're coming into the year with big questions on the structures of our relationships, our money, what makes us feel better, the complications of Saturn and Aquarius, square Uranus and Taurus, of can we actually find connection on the same values? And when we can, are there some parts that are missing? And then we try to find those other parts in other people or other situations. Or this is where Jupiter and Neptune are trying to search beyond this reality, search beyond even our mind or science, and go into the ethereal, go into the divine as much as possible. But that brings up our subconscious energies, that brings up where we spiritually block ourselves. And I think it's really important that we realize that, 2022 is a year where, okay, every 8 years, Venus retrogrades back in the same space. And so 8 years ago, 2013, December into January 2014 was Venus retrograde in Capricorn. But it got 1 degree from Pluto when it went direct after it retrograded. So when it went stationary direct, Pluto was right there, but it didn't stop on Pluto like we just saw actually at the end of 2021. You had the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. You had Jupiter-Chiron that's coming in Aries. You had Saturn and Uranus squaring, but not by exact. But you have Saturn squaring the nodes. You have Uranus North Node conjunction that's going to happen this summer in Taurus. This is the energy of an unpredictable Earth and an unstable Earth and an unstable energy is not going away, but it almost can be foreshadowed by fluff. It can be foreshadowed by glossing things over. And there's a lot of energy that's wanting to come out to kind of gloss things over to make things feel better all the time. It's almost like when you have a scratch on a car and you just get some touch-up paint, But that scratch is there, but nobody else can really see it unless they get kind of closer up to it. Where are those scratches that you've covered up in your own life, especially about your relationships, especially about what's been going on in the world, or where you might have felt a void in your life because of 2020's energy and 2021's? Remember, I said that 2021 was shattered reality, and we've all been through this shattered reality where I predicted last year on the same video and on the special videos and lectures that I do that shattered reality would be a reality that would be told that this is going to advance us forward, and that actually it would not, and it would be shattered, and a lot of people would fall for it, and then they would be at the very end of the year like, what the heck? Obviously, we all know what that is, and that energy is going to now find a way to distract. The good news about 2022 is because the energies are separating from 2020, that there's more to be able to see, because you're going to be able to not feel like you are as encroached. Because when you get all these big planets all next to each other, it kind of feels like there's no space. So at least there's going to feel like there's some more space but there's also this energy that's coming at us, almost trying to entice us into continuing to put the touch-up paint on things, when really maybe we should do that extra spiritual work and not avoid what's really going on. There's going to be a lot of energy that's going to try and take us away from what's really going on in order to distract, in order to also at the same time kind of be a cover energy for what's really going on. It's very red herring energy. This scent's actually not the scent that we should be on. And in our own lives, it's definitely going to come up. You know, 2021 and 2020, a lot of people were very upset with what I had to say. Actually, it was kind of funny, you know. March 2020, April 2020, everybody was on my team. Like, you called this to the degree of what was said, but when it hit that spot that they didn't want to realize on the deception part, and when you have Saturn in Aquarius that came in, and it becomes this collective energy, and it becomes, well, my friends or other people are saying this, or if I don't do this, you know, the world will look at me different. A lot of people lost that courage, and a lot of people put a lot of blame on me as saying I'm somebody who's just touting off, you know, whatever you want to call that term nowadays, whether it's misinformation or something. I'm just giving you the astrology. It's really hard because doing this horoscope for people for 2022, I know they want a lot more cold hard, you know, this is going to happen. This is what fuel's going to do. This is what, you know, I already have made so many of those predictions from the Capricorn times, and they're all going to still continue to keep running. It's whether or not you can really look at yourself and really have a better connection with the divine, listen to your intuition more, and more importantly, not fall for the last part of this big spell they're going to try and do. This Pluto and Capricorn system is going to continue to the last fighting breath, especially if we talk about financials, that there's going to be so many patches. There's not many patches they can do left, but oh boy, they will patch it. I know a lot of people are expecting doom and gloom. I really don't see that doom and gloom yet. I see a lot of patching it up and waiting till Pluto really gets to the end of Capricorn and moves into Aquarius, where things get disrupted. That's just even following Saturn. If you really think about it, it was Saturn in Aquarius that brought down the lockdowns. It wasn't Saturn in Capricorn. So the idea of the financial system going through the worst time it already is with inflation and so forth. And if you want to talk about inflation, Jupiter and Neptune is the inflation of false media, false propaganda at its peak. I think that if I were to be very honest with you all, and I know that some people might not believe me, but those that are in high vibe know from what I've been saying, that this isn't about politics, that every person we've been seeing doesn't make sense if you look at 2021. And there's some sort of weird movie going on here or some correlation of that movie. And right now, I really wouldn't put too much energy into which person is the bad. There's going to be so much switching of the movie, of the people that we're seeing and how they're all interconnected. That there's a numbing effect, because it's almost like the characters of the show are going to have their big kind of dramatic moments here, and how you have to look beyond that and see that they've been rehearsing together for a long time. I know a lot of people want to know if the world's going to stay locked down. Like I said, I feel that we are about to see a big distraction. And with the South Node now going to be in Scorpio for 18 months starting in January. And that dispositor is Pluto, and it's near the end of Capricorn. There's going to be a lot of fears still to control. That's not going away. But with the North Node in Taurus, it's reminding that you have to have the value, and you have to know your real values, and you have to be able to hold those values in. And I know it's not going to be easy for a lot of people to continue to hold those values that are true to the divine, that are true for you in your life, to take you to the best place. I feel like a lot of people are going to still kind of follow the leader, per se, that really has been rehearsed. And I got a feeling we'll see swaps in leaders, especially with Jupiter, Chiron, Aries, especially with Jupiter and Neptune here in Pisces. It's going to feel like a rehearsed show. That's exactly what happened with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. Was President Pierce went to the DNC and was only first term president, and the DNC decided, no, you know what, we're not gonna run you. We're gonna run Buchanan. He was away from all this Kansas-Nebraska Act, bleeding Kansas stuff, and yeah. So thanks for being president. We're gonna put him up. Coming into that same transit. Of course, I cover a lot more of what's going on with these transits, per se, in my 2022 video, Age of Deception, Divine Secession, where I spend the hours going through every single bit of the history and what to look out for. But I would say that focus on your creativity, focus on the world that you can create. You know, one beautiful thing about Taurus is, for those that have held the line in the energy of their values, that are true to the divine, that are true to, you know, what is beautiful and what is natural and the divine, you'll be fine, because it's like those that hold on to things long term get paid off with North Node and Taurus. It's the quick energy of trying to get quick change that is going to fail dramatically in 2022. There is no quick pill that's going to fix this thing. There is no quick new thing. Anything that pops up, you have to realize there's some deep financial connection. There's some deep thing that's also connected to the financial markets. It's also connected to the system. Oof. The term miracle is going to be the miracles that you see from God within your own life, not what they tell you is a miracle. I think that should be the best thing to get through this year, because trying to predict this year of every little movement, it's going to be chaotic from things switching from one end to the other with Jupiter and Neptune Pisces. It's like the biggest tsunami, tornado energetically there is. We need to pay attention that the media with Jupiter and Neptune is going to be overinflated. That's the biggest bubble there is, especially when it comes to the hypnotic energies and knowing how to remove hypnotic energy from within yourself. And I'm not trying to be political on what side or the other. I'm trying to show that as a collective right now, we have to get out of this bubble. I know in financial terms, we always say there's a bubble in the housing market, there's a bubble in on Wall Street, there's a bubble in crypto, there's a bubble. The biggest bubble is the delirium. The biggest bubble is, the mental health issues going on right now. The biggest bubble is what's happening as a collective psychologically. That's about to burst. And so being creative is a way to do that. Music is a time for where you'll see a lot more music and more artists that are really expressing themselves and what they're going through. And it's a good place for you. It's going to feel like the year of bewilderment, because just like at the end of 2021, where people had a shattered reality, I feel like people are going to come to the end of this and just be like, why didn't I just not fall for this delirium? Or why did I really believe that was a miracle because I was told it was, It reminds me of tonic salesmen back in the turn of the century with what we're seeing everywhere in the world right now. And only you can determine what aligns with you in your divine, pure, true self and what feels good for your spiritual energy. We have Mars that's going to retrograde at the end of this year in Gemini, while Jupiter's retrograding back into Pisces. So there's going to be a lot of, especially if you look at America's chart has Pluto return and a Mars return with Mars in Gemini. And with Uranus coming all the way past the halfway point of Taurus, and with Saturn that's going to be getting close to the end of Saturn in Aquarius, we're definitely coming into some really, really extreme moments here that are going to have a lot of numbing to try and numb people or distract people from what's happening on a much more grander scale. And the best news is remembering that you believe when the movie's true or not, that's up to you, right? And I feel that the energy that you do at the beginning of January with this Venus retrograde in Capricorn that retrograded over Pluto, and with the South Node that will be now in Scorpio, and you're going to have to look at Pluto transits, and Pluto being at the end of a transit through Capricorn, and it's not there yet, and it's really kind of these rules and these control systems. This is definitely going to be a time for you to wake up from the delirium of what's trying to create a rehearsed kind of story that almost looks like it's extremely magical. I mean, let's be honest, if we use Disney movies, for example, it's like they had to take parts out of some of those Disney movies, like the scene when The Lion King, when Simba falls down and up in the air, you're able to see the sex. They had to remove that so kids don't see that. But if you have the original videotapes, you can still watch that, but it's like been scrubbed away. We have to pay attention to what's going to be scrubbed away. What's also going to be something that you can see, but people might be like, well, you're crazy. Remember, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces can be like, oh, you're crazy. I think mental health is going to be the biggest issue. I feel that mental health is going to be the biggest bubble, I should say, or the biggest issue, bigger than the events that we've been dealing with for the last 2 years, bigger than climate change, bigger than all that. I think you're going to see a lot of energy that's out there to really, push that. I mean, even some of the, it's hard to say. I don't know a lot to say here on YouTube anymore, but a lot of the drugs are going to put out there too are going to have mental health medication in them. So think about what you're taking this year. You got to be very careful. It's like the fentanyl situation. I wouldn't be messing around with drugs with Jupiter, Neptune, Pisces. You don't know what's in it. Looks good, but smallest trace of these things. Same thing with whatever the miracle drug is that's going to come out this year. Not a miracle. This is where you really are going to have your greatest test of, do you fall for the false energy, or do you fall for, not even fall for, but do you listen to your intuition? Do you, what honestly feels divine? What also is you facing the fact, are you just trying to make yourself feel better from a place of a void, or a place where, you feel it's hard to connect with things, and so you kind of throw any crazy notion there is, or anything that comes at you, and trying to connect with just to try and feel better? Discernment's a big lesson in Capricorn, and with the Venus retrograde and with Pluto coming near the end of Capricorn here, these are some big tests about, when do we keep holding on to the guardrail on the Titanic before it sinks? And, one other part of Jupiter and Neptune it reminds me of mirages. There's always a mirage out there in the desert. And it almost looks like, once you get really tired and thirsty, like, there it is. And you can walk all the way to there and realize it was just a mirage, that there was no oasis there. So we got to be careful of that, because the only oasis there really is the stuff that's in alignment with your spiritual truth, and not from what's being kind of told to you, Or make sure that you know what you're taking, and make sure that it's not creating that mirage or an oasis that isn't there. I know a lot of people want to know if exposure or justice are going to come. I mean, we had some rough Mars transits here this year. And I don't believe that 2022 is going to get us all to the truth that we're all hoping to find, except within, and within seeing about the world. But no, I don't think that there's going to be some sweeping. And if there is some sort of sweeping change, it's saying that it has saved the world, and that's part of the story, and you're going to have to read between those lines of what it's really trying to do. That the energy of what people really want out there and what they really want to see, this is where we don't see what we want to see in things that are not actually there to be seen, and start creating what we see and want to see. Because this is going to be a year where the psychosis of the collective hasn't even reached its peak until this 2022. There's too much at the end of these major transits, and the best thing that you can be is sturdy within yourself. I think it's smart financially to have things that are worthy, not just try and waste your energy or your money on, just things that fill you up for a moment. This is really where the things that are quality and are of value are going to show themselves. And for those that know their values and are willing to connect with those values that have a purpose and a meaning that is not based off some sort of narrative, but especially collectively, but one based upon the calling that you have from within, you'll see those go really well. But the collective calling that's being sold to you like the coolest new set of sunglasses, and that's the miracle. I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing the term miracle, 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 when really it's not. Neptune also, as it comes up to these degrees, remind me of the Lady of Guadalupe that was found in Mexico and was a vision that was seen. And with Jupiter and Neptune conjunct here, and if you look at the Lady of Guadalupe and you look at the astrology, it might not be exactly the way that things look in 2022, but it's similar if you're able to see through the charts. And that can bring inspiration and hope, because there's always going to be some sort of false miracle hope and one that the people see on their own. And in many ways, we need to pay attention to things like that. And even though those things could be laughed at, I think it's going to be a very important time to really ask yourself, where do miracles come from? Do they come from God or do they come from man? Everything right now that's going to happen to you this year is going to feel like a miracle because it came from God. And everything that says it came miraculously from man, I still would not be the first in line to accept that miracle. And it pains me to say that because I feel like humanity's at a great moment here. But at the same time, I don't think that humanity's at the moment yet. If anything, humanity still has a big breaking point before it can reach that big moment. And usually it's when something looks like such a miracle and everything's ended and everything looks good that Jupiter and Chiron we've never seen in Aries. And with the Jupiter retrograding back to the 29th degree, with the nodes that are going to be, with Uranus, with South Node in Scorpio, I don't think we've reached our breaking point yet. And we're very close to it, but it's almost one of those things where we should just allow it to come to a breaking point, but also divine timing is everything. And so the opposite will be done. The miracle will be here to miraculously fix humanity, that then we'll realize that it wasn't such a miracle at all. And that's what I would pay attention to this year, especially in yourself, creating miracles that you're creating on your own when really they come from a divine place. And this is where you listen. This is where you surrender. This is where you pay attention. This is a lot like the judgment card in tarot. What is the calling and when do you rise up? You rise up when it's got a divine calling and a divine message. Neptune's energy is so far away. And so it's an energy, it's the outpost of our solar system, that it's like the antenna that sends us the intuition to the sun of what's going on out there. And I think that when Saturn in Aquarius here in Uranus and Taurus still, in North Node Uranus, there's going to be a lot of space energy that comes up, and miracles maybe of space, or origins of these things in space, or pictures from, especially Jupiter, Neptune, or video of things we've never seen before. I'd question them before you believe them. All in all, for those that really have deprogrammed themselves from the old world, the 2012 alignment had happened. This year is full of abundance and full of joy and full of compassion and full of beautiful things and full of healing and full of really, not that you need to keep finding a place to get rid of a void, but stop avoiding the things that you do to keep trying to fill a void, like that's holding the void. This is where humanity's breaking point can really be, for those that are aware and not going to fall for the movie at its greatest peak and the propaganda at its greatest peak, can really come together and really focus on other things. And be there for those that are going to be somewhat shocked. Again, not so much like a shattered reality, although that's a good description, but more of where It's time to secede from anything that's not divine. It's time to let go of anything that's not from the divine or doesn't have a divine presence. And stop keeping, putting our energy as in this kind of world will figure itself out by this group of people. Like, this is where we all have to step up in ourselves, and we have to try solutions that we haven't tried before. And we have to listen to our dreams. We have to listen to our imagination. We have to listen to our creativity. And more importantly, we need to come from a place of compassion, because a compassionate energy doesn't force anything on people, and it understands people. And people do a lot better about contributing in life when they don't feel like they're judged, and when they don't feel like that they are in an unsafe territory to express who they are. And if we can find that as a collective, we can really start to make some ground with the good news of all these planets separating from 2020 and 2021 into 2022, and really start to blossom again. But of course, I have my doubts. And I think the biggest one is, don't let the rug get pulled beneath you. Don't get too confident in delirium. Don't get too lost in miracles that you're creating yourself, or that others are telling you are miracles. These eclipses now, and these Scorpio energies and these Pluto energies are going to be extremely testy. And this is you invest your energy into things that are the ultimate best, and they already are naturally beautiful. They don't take time to continue to see if they even are. One thing that Taurus teaches us is we already know if something's amazing. We don't have to try and eventually change. And that, especially like relationships, right? It's like, well, hopefully one day I'll really learn to love this person more. It's a little different when it comes to people and society. It's a little different when it comes to your personal relationships. So I do wish you the best. I know it was a weird 2021. But, to be honest, it wasn't weird for those that didn't follow the experiment itself, or didn't follow what was that energy of being encroached upon of, this is what you have to do, because that didn't work. And if you can continue that through this year, especially when it almost looks too good to be true, that maybe what is now being shown is going to work, this is where you're going to have your little yellow and red flags on high alert. And when they go off, pay attention to them. Because if you do, and you let go, that's where you end up into the true magic and the true dreams and the true imagination and the true dreams that can be possible for you this year. But with this Mars retrograde at the end of the year, this Jupiter retrograde back into Pisces, it's definitely, it could be deflating. And if you get too high on a horse this year, just make sure you know that it's a long way down on that fall. I appreciate you all very much. I'm sending you all my best. If you want to watch my daily horoscopes, my weekly deep astrology, my weekly shows that are all on High Vibe here at the High Vibe TV studios, you can go to all of our apps, High Vibe TV, or of course, subscribe to the website, highvibe.tv, or the apps themselves. I appreciate you all. It's very confusing. That's why, like I said, if you want to watch my 2022 lecture that I did in December, you can go to highvibe.tv, click on events, and also on the link below wherever you're at, and definitely watch that. And I can definitely help you see a little bit better. But if you thought Dorothy was confused after her house being pulled out of Kansas, well, she had a little bit more clarity than we're going to have this year. I appreciate you all. I'll see you in the next video. Wishing you the best year as well.